What is going on, gunfighters? Welcome back to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics, the right way, with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. I couldn't do anything without God. This podcast is no different. Today we're going to be talking about the AR-15. I have a long and storied history with the AR-15, the M16, the M4, CAR-15, military, law enforcement, private contracting. For more specifics on that, check out the show notes. I put some cliff notes on my bio in the show notes to get it out of the main body for people to not have to listen to it over and over again. But needless to say, there's a long and storied history with this platform. And I'm going to refer to it as the AR-15. And that could be anything from an AR pistol to a 20-inch heavy-barreled Colt H-bar, right? In that family, that operating system. And we're mostly going to be talking about a deeper understanding of the platform. Before we get into that, a couple of side things for you guys that care about how the sausage is made. I am also working as a private security contractor. I've been doing a lot of travel and reconnaissance for other jobs, for other contracts, just the way, the nature of the private security contracting world. Been traveling a lot. You may notice a little dip in the audio quality in the acute sense on the podcast because it's just the nature of travel. You may also notice a little bit less editing, a little bit more raw content. Hopefully you're okay with that. On that, with a lot of travel and a lot of things that come with travel and time, and my sister's wedding is coming up. And I think I actually may be performing the ceremony for my sister's wedding. Just found out that she's getting married. We live in completely different parts of the country, but that's another thing coming up. So with that, I'm asking for your help on content. Even if you don't want to become a paying patron, go check out Patreon. There are plenty of open posts on there that you can just look out without becoming a patron. Just sign up as a free member, or there's some that are just open to the public. So either way, you don't have to put in credit card information or anything. And I'll try and put one on there on questions. The Q&As would be a good way for us to connect and for me to know what you guys care about and what you guys want to hear about. Maybe some of those will spin off into entire episodes, but at least if I get some good questions on there, I can answer Q&As. It'll help me out. It'll help you out. Help me help you. Go to Patreon. Either just check out public posts or sign up as a free member so you get notified, when stuff happens on there. But there should be places on there where you can ask questions. Ask me questions. I would appreciate that. Again, help me help you. So there should be a link for that in the show notes. With that, let us talk about the AR-15, a deeper understanding of the AR-15. Now, direct impingement is what it's generally called. It's actually not direct impingement. It's more of a gas piston system, but DI, or direct impingement, is what it's colloquially referred to as, so that's how I'm going to refer to it. I have a long and storied history with the AR-15. I don't have a love affair. I'm not head over heels with the AR-15. It does leave some things to be desired, but it is the de facto platform of our day. So I don't want you to think that I'm like all in on the AR-15. It's the AR-15 or nothing. It is the major platform of the 20th century for America. It has been around for the longest chunk of the 20th century and going into the 21st century. It's still going strong. I know the M7 277 Fury, I would not call that an AR platform. It's got a completely different operating system. It's got similar ergonomics, but that's about it. But until that is mass adopted, I know they're trying to roll it out, but it's still, the vast majority of U.S. troops are still in 2025 equipped with an AR platform, whether it be the M4 or the M16, it's an AR platform. And it's probably likely to continue even if we see more adoption of the M7 and the 277 Fury. even if we see that, it's going to be a long time. And look at the M16, right? We adopted that. It was made in the 50s. It was adopted in the early 60s. And even in America in the 2000s, like the cool guy gun, the main gun you wanted if you were doing fighting carbine stuff in general was a Mini 14. It wasn't until the assault weapons ban sunset and some other stuff, you know, when there was more manufacturers than just Bushmaster and Colt, before it really started taking off on the civilian market, which was, 40, 50 years later. So that said, even if we see the pendulum swing in the military world from the majority of troops going from the M16 to the M7, even if we see that pendulum swing in the military world, it may be several decades before you see the major pendulum swing in the civilian world. There's going to be catch-up. There's going to be cost. Just like, in the early aughts, a Colt AR-15 was a lot of money. I don't think a lot of the younger shooters just getting into this realize how expensive those were when, a good Colt AR-15 might cost you $1,000 or more back in 1990s money, 2000s money, when you could get an SKS for under $100, and you could get a decent AK, Cold War era AK for $300. So, you look at the cost of an M7 now. You could probably scrounge one up for $5,000 or more. But how many people are going to go out and rush and get those? So even if we see the pendulum swing in the military market, in the military arena, you probably won't see it shift on the civilian market for several decades. So it is the elephant in the room that needs to be talked about. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. The AR-15 was a pretty radical departure in design, both in caliber, and I know you can get ARs in different calibers. We're talking about the 5.56. Pretty radical departure from days of yore for America and the world as a whole. There's probably other more experimental ones. I know there was the M1 carbine, which was big, but it was really the first small caliber, 22 caliber, high velocity, mass adopted military round by any major nation, any major player on the world stage. It was kind of revolutionary in that we went from America being, full powered rifle, heavy hitter, and I have a bit of experience with the M14 as well. It's a radical departure from a heavy blued steel or a heavy Parkerized walnut full powered rifle to a higher capacity, lighter weight, high velocity, sub-caliber, small caliber, 22 caliber round. There's a radical departure in that. That is kind of the crux of the appeal. That was the major appeal of the M16 platform. Going into Vietnam, it was that you could carry more ammo. If you're looking at fighting, back then it was fighting the Russians. Maybe now the Chinese is more plausible. The Russians, who knows? But a major land army that outnumbers you. Carrying more ammo for the same weight is a big deal. That is still, in my opinion, one of the main attributes of the AR platform. The ammunition is lightweight. It's never been a great ballistic performer. I don't care if you're like, I'm a M855 guy or I'm a Mark 262 guy. It's a marginally effective caliber. I'm not going to say it's ineffective, right? We've been using it for 70 years, 60 years. So it's not ineffective, but it is, I will say it's marginal. As somebody that's used it in war, as somebody that's used it in police work, it is marginal. It's a marginal caliber. It was never adopted because it was a heavy hitter. It was never adopted because it was the bestest, most killingest round ever. It was adopted because it was lightweight and it was good enough and you could carry a lot of ammo. Okay? There's been a lot of evolution in the projectiles to get it to be more effective, from 55 grain to 62 grain to, You see more of the 77 grain stuff now. If you think about going from 55 grain to 77 grain in percentage-wise, that's a big jump. But that was done because of the lack of effectiveness of terminal performance in the cartridge. That said, it's not ineffective. And you can carry a lot more of it. Let's say, for argument's sake, rough numbers, you can carry twice as much ammunition as you can with the 308. And I was the commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters, and I was the guy that not only was in charge tactically, but I wrote the policies and procedures. Like, a big part of my job was writing policies and procedures for what we could carry, what we couldn't carry, training, loadouts, things like that. And I would let the guys carry what they wanted. And I myself would carry what I wanted. Sometimes I would carry a 308. Sometimes I'd carry a SCAR 17, depending on the mission. Sometimes I'd carry an AR-15, depending on the mission. Although the AR-15 is less effective round per round, there are a lot of cases, a lot of missions where it's a better choice. And I will stand by that. I'm not saying it's better altogether. If I had to pick a rifle, like running into the apocalypse, depending on what the apocalypse looks like, and I got no caveats and I had to pick a rifle, it'd probably be 308. But there are many, many, many cases, a modern battlefield being one of them, where you may choose an AR in 223. It may be the wiser choice. And one of the major reasons for that is the ammunition is lightweight. And again, going back to the ammunition and the magazines, right? You look at an AK magazine versus an AR-15 magazine, it's crazy how much lighter it is. And with the 50 or 60 years of development, we've gotten some really good magazines. And because of the mass adoption of the round, and because it's been so prolific for so long, not just the weight of the ammo, but the cost of the ammo. It is the cheapest center fire round, unless you just find some crazy deal somewhere, that I'm aware of as far as rifle rounds. It's the cheapest center fire rifle round, period. So the biggest factor of you winning, well, the biggest factor always is God for everything. You couldn't draw another breath without God. So let me back up on that before I say something just completely not true. The biggest factor is God Almighty. The victory is the Lord's. Stepping back from that, next in line, the next biggest factor of you winning a gunfight is you and your training and your ability. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. They want to think they can click and buy stuff on Amazon or Midway USA or Brownells or whatever your favorite tactical site is, PSA. I'm not sponsored by anybody. You think you can buy and click and put stuff in your shopping cart and buy it, and that makes you effective. It doesn't. It makes you a loot drop. You have to have the skill. Just like you could give me Jimi Hendrix guitar. I can't play Jimi Hendrix guitar. Giving me Jimi Hendrix guitar doesn't make me Jimi Hendrix. It doesn't make me a rock star. You could give me, I don't know, going completely opposite you could give me Johnny Cash's old microphone. I can't sing like Johnny Cash, right? It's just, the equipment doesn't make the person. And so many people today think that I'm going to buy and click and put stuff in my cart and purchase my way because I'm a spoiled American and I can buy pretty much whatever I want, or I can buy anything that I want. I mean, everything that I want, but pretty much any gun that I want. If I hustle, I can afford it. That makes me effective. It doesn't, right? If I give you a Navy SEAL's loadout, it doesn't make you a Navy SEAL. If I give you a Marines loadout, it doesn't make you a door kicker. It doesn't. The biggest factor of success or failure, stepping down from the Almighty, is your training and ability. How does that factor into cost of ammo? You can train more with it. If you talk about going to a training class, if you go to a modern fighting carbine class, the de facto default in that class is going to be the AR-15, and it's going to be the 223. It takes a certain amount of training and rounds for you to be effective, period. Nobody popped out of their mama's womb with an AR-15 and a plate carrier. You need training to be effective. Nobody popped out of their mom. People are born with different attributes, different skills, different talents. Some people are called to be warriors. Some people are just drawn to that in life. I've seen that enough. But you still need the training, right? You still need weapons proficiency. And you can get that efficiency as far as centerfire rifles go cheaper with the AR-15 than anything else. So that is a big, big advantage. The weight of the ammo and the fact that you can buy it and train with it is readily available right now. Ammo shortages come and go. If you're old enough to be shooting right now, you've lived through plenty of them. But right now, it's affordable as much as any centerfire round is. Stop worrying about the days when you could get spam cans for, $40. Those days are gone. As far as compared to anything else, compared to the price of eggs, right? 223 is affordable and it's available. And that means you can train with it and be effective with it. I recently did an episode on the AR-10 versus the AR-15 and which one is better. And what I kind of said, the bottom line was, until you're really good with an AR-15, don't consider the AR-10. Because if you can't shoot fast and accurate with an AR-15, you can't with an AR-10. Get good with the AR-15, and then you may find a use case where the AR-10, the 308, is better for you. But if you're just getting started, you've never taken a tactical carbine class, you don't have any formal training, almost certainly the 223 is a better option for you because you need to train with it. And unless you got Uncle Sam buying your ammo, and I'm blessed to have plenty of jobs where Uncle Sam or somebody, private contracting company, buys my ammo. If you're buying your own ammo, and I buy a lot of my own ammo, because even with the training I get, I don't think it's enough, the 223 makes a lot of sense. It's the most affordable centerfire round. You can do a lot of your training with the 22, but not all of it. You can do a lot of your training with dry fire, but not all of it. Some of it requires you putting rounds down range with your fighting platform, and the 223 makes a lot of sense for that. So we see the two big attributes being the weight of ammo and the cost of ammo. We see, and the cost and weight of magazines. We'll throw that in there. The cost of a good AR magazine is crazy cheap. Like, if you're not stocked up on AR magazines right now after you've lived through several shortages, what are you doing? Like, stock up on that. But another attribute of the AR-15 compared to most other things around in its class, even other intermediate, not even going to the full power rifle, but other intermediate rifles and cartridges, it's soft shooting compared to an SKS, compared to an AK-47. No, I like the AK-47. I've used the AK-47 overseas. I like the AK-47. I think it's honestly a better platform in many scenarios. And I'm not going to pretend the AK is a heavy recoiling cartridge. It's not. The 760x39 is a better round per round cartridge. The AK-47 is a more robust platform, but it does have more recoil. Compared to other things in its class, the AR-15 is very soft shooting. That's a big attribute if you're trying to get multiple fast hits on target. And you might think, well, I'd rather have a more effective round and need less of them on a target. And that's a valid point. One that I talked about when I was the commander of a tactical team. Many times I would take the 308, but many times I wouldn't. What if you have a lot of adversaries and it's better to get fast hits on several adversaries quickly than to get a heavier hitting round more slowly on multiple targets, on multiple adversaries? Because I don't care who you are. I don't care how big and bad you are. I don't care if you weigh 350 pounds and it's pure muscle and you can bench press 450 pounds when you have a head cold and a broken wrist. I don't care how big and bad you are. The more recoil you have, the slower you can shoot, the slower you can get hits on target. That's just a reality. That's how physics works. So if you're trying to get multiple fast hits on target, compared to most other common platforms, the AR-15 is going to be faster, right? There's a reason when you go to shooting competitions, unless they have a specific division, a specific class, like 3-gun or something like it, you're not going to be running, like 308 has its own class, heavy metal. If you are, and you may see some guys running some real Gucci cartridges, but for the most part, it's going to be ARs and 223. You're not going to go toe-to-toe with an AK-47 against an AR-15 if you're talking about a speed competition, getting multiple hits on multiple targets at speed at varying distances. The king of that is the AR-15. So compared to other things in its class, SKS, AK-47s, and the AK-47 is, of course, the big rival. And I'm not even saying that the AR-15 is always better. But one of the big attributes is it's got less recoil. Just because it's a high-velocity 22 round, it has very light recoil. The operating system, which we're going to get to, both has big payoffs and big handicaps. But because it has a low recoiling cartridge to start with, then it has a straight inline recoil system where the recoil mostly goes straight back. It's still going to go up a little bit because it just does. Because the vast majority of your strength and your muscle and your frame, your muscular skeletal system is down from the gun's going to go in the path of least resistance. So it's going to move up. If you're right-handed, it's probably going to move up and to the left because that's just how physics work. But it's going to do it less so than many other platforms. And because that recoil is straight back, it's going to do it less than that same cartridge in a different platform, all other things being equal. So the recoil is very mild, which, again, it's not like it's a painful thing to shoot an SKS or an AK-47. Those are also very mild recoiling rounds compared to a full-powered rifle, but it's even less than those. So getting fast multiple hits on target, if you're fast, you're getting less hindrance from the gun. Now that straight back recoil, we'll get into the operating system. That requires a buffer tube. We're sticking with direct impingement guns. We're not talking about piston guns or anything like that right now. I've done different episodes on those in the past, and there are places for those. But if you're talking about your traditional system, you need a buffer tube. You can get some crazy workarounds, but you can't fire the gun with a folded stock. You can't fold the stock, and if you can fold the stock, you can't fire it with a folded stock. So the straight line in the inline straight back recoil of the buffer tube is both good and bad. It's good because it's straight back recoil. It's bad because you need a buffer tube. The buffer tube has its own problems, and another big one is that it doesn't have the ergonomics of a traditional rifle or shotgun. I prefer the traditional ergonomics. Those were developed over centuries to be the most ergonomic. You get rid of those with the AR-15. For somebody that's only ever shot an AR-15, people might think that those are the best ergonomics. But I would challenge you, if you spend a lot of time training with other platforms, the more traditional lines of a more traditional rifle and shotgun, and there are minor variances, but those are better, I think. So you give that up for that. Having that, because you have that carry handle on top, because you have that buffer tube, your sights are higher over the bore. It just is a less natural, I think, to me, and for most people, if they had equal training on different platforms. You give up that classic ergonomics. You could, maybe that's a personal preference thing, but it's there. When you look at an AR-15 or M16, you know what it is because it's so radically different in aesthetics and ergonomics than most other things. And there are a lot of copycats nowadays because it's been so big for so long. But you give that up with a lot of that is due to the buffer tube because the operating system has to be in a straight line, so other things have to be put out of place. The big detriment to me is, and I don't want to overplay this, but I don't want to underplay this either. It goes to the bathroom where it eats. It defecates in its operating system. The way it works real quick, and you could just look this up visually way better. Audio is not the best for everything, but the barrel has a hole cut in the top. That hole funnels gas through a tube, like a snorkel, back to the bolt, and that shoves the bolt backwards. There's a lot more going on than that, but basically that's it. But that bolt going back in the action where the ammo is, where the gun feeds, that's where that gas gets deposited. That gas is not clean. That gas is full of all kinds of nasty stuff. Carbon, all kinds of stuff that you don't want in the action of your gun. That's where that all gets deposited. That is a potential major issue for the gun. I know you can shoot ARs a long time without cleaning them. I can't remember the last time I cleaned mine. But I also haven't recently gotten blood in the action. I haven't gotten a bunch of mud in the action. It's probably got some dust in there. But it as a platform needs to be run cleaner than many other platforms. I don't think anybody would argue that in most dirty, nasty, lack of maintenance environments, the AK-47 is a better system. I didn't say it was a better system altogether. I'm just saying the AR-15 requires more maintenance. It's got more small moving parts, and because it defecates where it eats, it goes to the bathroom where it feeds itself out of the magazine and the bolt and all those things, it makes itself dirtier faster. It just does. Like, go shoot 1,000 rounds through both platforms and then clean an AK-47 or even a Mini 14 and clean an AR-15 and tell me which one is dirtier and takes longer to clean. The M16 AR-15 platform takes way longer. In fact, I can generally clean several other guns in the time it takes me to clean an AR-15 well that's dirty because, again, it goes to the bathroom where it eats. One of the other main attributes compared to other fighting rifle type things, not compared to like a hyper accurate bolt action, but compared to many other fighting platforms, it's pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate because it has fine tolerances. So again, both a good thing and a bad thing. It has very precise tolerances, and it has that, I would say, not fragile, but more, maybe not delicate, that would be overstating it, more intricate, multi-lug, rotating lockup in the bolt, which aids in accuracy, but it also makes it a little bit more finicky. That system, if you take a good defensive carbine class, and I hope that you do, you will spend a big chunk of your class in the AR-15 working on how to fix malfunctions. A single feed, a double feed, a triple feed, a bolt override, and they all require different things to clear those. And I don't think that makes the platform worthless, but you take a instruction on an AK-47, if you do get a malfunction, you basically, whatever it is, you take the mag out, you run the action a couple times, you put the mag back in. So the fact that it has tight tolerances and that multi-lug rotating bolt that locks up tight, that aids in accuracy, but it also makes it a more intricate operating system. And anytime you introduce more complexity, you introduce the opportunity for that thing to not work well. It's kind of like if you look at an old, and I'm not the world's best mechanic, I can do some things, but if you look at an old air-cooled Volkswagen Beetle engine, or if you look at an old Willys Jeep, an old carbureted Jeep, Willys or CJ5 or CJ7, that is a much simpler engine and machine. It's not as high performance as a Porsche. It's not going to be that. But it also is easier to work on, easier to fix, and has less potential things that can go wrong with the engine, with the computers, with all those things. I'm not saying one's better than the other. There's plenty of times where I would take a Porsche over a Willys Jeep, and plenty of times where I would take a Willys Jeep over a Porsche. What am I doing, right? Am I going to round up stray cattle on the open range? I want the Jeep. Am I trying to make it from wherever I am to, I don't know, the other side of a city as fast as I can get there? Then I want the Porsche. Different missions. But just to get a deeper understanding of the AR, you should understand that the tolerances are tight. Maybe it requires a little bit more TLC, a little bit more maintenance. There are smaller moving parts that need to work well together, but you get more performance out of it. So it's not like it's just overly complicated for no reason. You get more performance. You can get more performance. You can get more speed. You can get more accuracy. And both of those are a good thing. But I'm not going to lie and pretend it's a free lunch. It's not a free lunch. So just understand that. And I think that's a pretty good place to start wrapping it up. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you listening. Hopefully this has given you a little bit of a better understanding and a realistic understanding of the AR. AR is one of those things people love to love it, act like it's the best and only thing out there and everything else is silly. And some people act like it's a garbage rod, that the fact that you look at it means it's going to have a malfunction. Neither one of those are true. Try and be honest and circumspect. And with that, I'm going to roll into your tactical verse of the day. You shall do no injustice in judgment and measurements of length, weight, or volume. So try and be honest, even with yourself, when you're looking at different platforms. I appreciate you guys. Again, please check out Patreon, ask some questions. I would love to get your questions. After you've read your Bible today, that's more important. If you haven't read your Bible today, read your Bible. Then after that, if you got some spare time, check out Patreon, ask some questions. Appreciate you, and have a blessed day. Hey guys, I literally had to cut this off because it was time to put on body armor and go to work, my other job. I could have kept talking about this subject, the, let's say, drawbacks and the strengths of the AR-15, the idiosyncrasies. If this real deep dive stuff on the AR-15 platform is something that you like, if you want more of it, let me know. And I would like to transition from more of an active gunfighting for a living role to more of a teaching role, if that is in accordance with God's will and plan for my life. If you guys want to help that and help the podcast out, check out Patreon. If you don't like monthly memberships, I get it. There's a couple of things on there, just products, if you want to help support without the monthly membership. And I'm not just asking you to give me something for free. If you want to do it just to support the podcast, that's nice. But Patreon has a lot of content that's only on Patreon. So anyway, if the episode seemed like it was kind of cut short, it really was. Again, if you want more of this kind of content on deeper dives on the AR, let's say the M9 or the Glock, let me know. Maybe it's too nerdy for many of us. With that, let's close up with a tactical verse of the day. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Therefore, by their fruits you will know them. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven.